Welcome, Muster0063 back again to finish the Robot Master stages of Mega Man 8. And yes, I can't put this one off any longer. It's everyone's least favourite DC superhero. Yeah. Water levels are usually okay in Mega Man games. In fact, they're probably one of the very few number of franchises to do water levels well. But in Mega Man 8, Mega Man gains the ability to swim, and it's wonky as all hell. You can't just swim in a nice smooth motion. Mega Man bobs and sinks awkwardly quickly. His momentum is off-putting to the point where you're attacking enemies, you probably need to constantly keep turning around and stuffing momentum so as not to run into anything, and it's just a pain to control him during the swimming sections. The end part of that last screen, by the way, there was a current pushing me back, hence why I walked and slid along the seabed floor to get by. Now, the enemies in the level are pretty straightforward, actually, if you ignore the water physics. Throw them in, though, and all of a sudden they become much more of a threat. As you see, you can't just pepper them with bullets because you constantly keep sinking and floating, and you won't be at the same horizontal position. I tried to ensure that would happen by standing on the floor, and paid the price. The shell enemies we saw in the opening stage, and they work much the same way here, only this time they're tougher to hit, and seem to be really in the way all the time. Clams open up and shoot bubbles at you. It's best to stay away as far as possible, since it offers a limited range, and attack when you can. Don't get greedy like I did earlier. So the current's back, and we have to deal with an enemy gauntlet, and insta-kill spikes all over the place. Lovely. Now, admittedly, these first spikes aren't too big of a deal, but these ones are. Swimming through this section never actually seems to give me a problem, but the water physics always make me nervous. This screen is annoying, because you seem to have so little room to be able to safely attack enemies. I have to hit the front of the shell enemy, but it keeps turning around. I have to lure the cuttlefish enemies to get a bit closer, but in doing so their movement becomes so much more erratic and unpredictable. All the while, I'm struggling to control my momentum, because the water physics are terrible. I don't want to keep harping on about the water physics, so that's the last time I'll complain about them, but you can imagine them being really irritating if going for a perfect run. So allow me to complain about this extremely uncooperative Sniper Joe instead. Throwing grenades right over the ladder I'm trying to climb. If he jumps, he actually jumps off screen if you're low enough on the ladder, which is what I was hoping would happen. But after so long, he still wasn't playing ball, so I just decided to kill the bastard myself. We've reached the mid-boss, and I'll say out front that this stupid fish thing, Garode is actually its name, is, I'm going to say at least 10 times more annoying than Junkai from Grenade Stage. I hate this thing, mainly because it's so bloody cheap. And yes, I'm using charge shots simply to speed up the fight. So you're falling down an endless waterfall, or endless until you kill Garone, then you suddenly reach the bottom, with these platforms that can break your fall. Garone disappears behind the waterfall and reappears wherever the hell it wants, even right on Mega Man. Then if it sees sort of home in on you, occasionally trying to punch you or drop balls on your head, you're disappearing behind the waterfall and repeating this cycle. But here's the problem. This thing is so damn big, so damn random, and corners you so often that I genuinely have no idea how you're supposed to consistently avoid it. If you were constantly falling during this fight, it would be a whole lot fairer, but the sodding platforms just get in your way. You end up with nowhere to go because you can't fall off the edge of a platform to put some distance between the two of you. Not to mention you also seem to have a crap ton of health too. Oh, this is one of the cheapest bosses in the entire classic Mega Man series, and I hate it. You do get rush health for taking out the bastard, and as with the other rush upgrades, I'll show those off later. Actually, next time. So, first half of the level out of the way, and second half, mid-boss excluded, is probably more annoying, if you can believe it. First few screens are absolutely fine, but then you start throwing in the irritating cuttlefish and clam enemies in areas with spike balls just lying around, waiting to catch you out. Oh, and did I mention that Mega Man sinks like a stone? Okay, he's a robot, so to be expected, but still. And here's me wonderfully showing off that you can't actually destroy these spike balls. However, you can move them with Tornado Hold, and doing so gives me access to this little area with some much needed health and a bolt. I wouldn't ordinarily have shown that off, but since I've been hit 20,000 times already on the stage, I wasn't exactly going to squander a perfect run opportunity, was I? Okay, so we're out of the water now, must do. Surely you mustn't have a problem with the stage now, right? Oh, you bet I do. We now have a huge bomb shaft to fall down. And I'd be okay with this if there weren't a load of enemies to avoid at the same time. But when you throw them into the mix, all the while trying to stay out of range of the countdown bombs, it's just ridiculous. Now, admittedly, I wasn't getting much opportunity to practice or replay this portion level while trying to perfect run this stage, but come on! That section is 100 times harder to get through without taking damage than the laser section of Quick Stage that people love to complain about. I get that the lasers are one-hit kills, but for perfect runs where damage is effectively the same thing, that bomb drop is a nightmare. And oh goody, we're back in the water one last time. Admittedly, I don't have much of an issue with this screen until the very last section. That's when they decide to throw two enemies that fire long-range projectiles toward you into the mix. Yeah, with Mega Man's water movement, that's just a lovely way to ruin a potential perfect run on the very last bit of the level. So apologies, that all probably came across as extremely whiny. But what can I say? I really do not like this level. Oh, shut up. Now, as it happens, Aqua turns to be one of the easier Robomaster fights. Although he does have the potential to completely screw you over. He has three attacks. One to jump really high, smash down to the ground, and cause a water column to rise up in the pool. It will be obvious where it's going to spurt from, just make sure not to get hit by the water splash. Keep your distance and you'll be fine. Secondly, you can aim a series of arcing water balloons at you. Get close to Aqua, and all the balloons will harmlessly arc over you. Thirdly, and here's where you can be a complete dick, shoot a water cannon stream at you. Where this move is completely unpredictable, and if it doesn't arc over or under you and just head straight for the wall, you'll need to time a jump perfectly so as not to get hit on the way up, but also so the water stream dissipates before you land. And that's very, very difficult to pull off. Now, fortunately, he doesn't seem to do this very often. The water stream usually arcs, so it's not something you have to worry about too much. God, even his voice irritates me. Finally, this stage is done. I get... water balloons get tossed at enemies. Slightly better than Thunderclaw, but that's about all it has going for it. Well, that stage was a hell of a thing. For all my complaining, can I possibly manage to pull off a perfect run? No. Not too surprisingly, I can't. Ultimately, it's another disappointing end, perfect run-wise, to a game, but this stage, or again more accurately the bloody mid-boss, is even more ridiculous than grenades. I hate this mid-boss, and this time I can't even complain about possible differences with the Mega Man Anniversary Collection version of the game. This thing just flat out sucks, whichever version you're playing. It seems to appear from behind the waterfall and move completely at random, so I can never predict where it's going. And if it chooses to home in on you, well, you're screwed. There are often too many platforms to prevent you from dropping lower down the waterfall at any great speed, you know, to get out of its way. It also, again seemingly randomly, fires out boxing gloves to completely mess up any evading tactics you might have chosen to employ, and those can be buggers to dodge. Lastly, of course, he's freaking huge. I wouldn't mind so much having to try to stay out of this thing's way, but it takes up like half the width of the screen. How on earth are you supposed to avoid that? Seriously, if anyone has any strategies or suggestions not involving Astro Crush, please let me know. I'm usually pretty good at figuring out avoidance techniques. I certainly wouldn't have started off this perfect run project if I weren't, and I'd like to think that my I Wanna Be game skills would be further testament, but I'm at a total loss here. I gave up, as with the Junkai, after 30 failed attempts. Enough was simply enough. During those 30 attempts, I continued on the remainder of the fight until I killed it, just to try to get a little bit of extra practice in, and on my best run, I still got hit twice, so I didn't really come close to beating it. As for the level as a whole, for all my whining, it's probably not too bad, although there is one section that looks pretty horrific. The first half, mid-boss excluded, is certainly manageable, although the swimming mechanics and physics are somewhat awkward to get used to, and there are a few tight areas with annoyingly placed enemies you need to lure out. The second half, while for the most part looks okay-ish, it does have the section with the drop down the bomb shaft. That looks absolutely awful, and given my troubles with the mid-boss, I haven't even had the chance to properly test myself against it. There are all kinds of irritating enemies rudely firing various projectiles at you when you're trying to time out bomb explosions, and as you would have seen from my Let's Play footage, I don't like this drop one bit. As if the mid-boss wasn't bad enough. Aquaman's actually okay. I stupidly ran into the water tower during the fight, but that was the only time I got hit. Most of his attacks are not especially threatening, if you stay in reasonably close proximity to him. The water balloons just arc over your head and won't hit you, and he never seems to jump in a fashion that by standing close to him, you put yourself in any danger. The water tower is easy enough to avoid, you'll get plenty of notice as to where it's going to form, and as long as you're patient enough not to run into it, you'll be fine. The water cannon appears to be the one attack that can catch you out. It's seemingly impossible to know how the water is going to curve, so you need to stand a reasonable distance away from Aqua. Hopefully, the water will curve before it reaches the wall. If it does, it'll be easy enough to see where you should stand to avoid it. What's really irritating is if the water doesn't curve, because this offers you no safe spot. The only thing you can do in this instance is go right up against the wall and jump just as the water is about to reach you. The water should dissipate by the time you land, but this can be very tricky to pull off. Other than that though, Aqua mercifully seems to be pretty easy. It's just a shame I can't get anywhere near him. As before, and even more so this time around, the only way I would consider going back to replay this stage is if I've practiced the second half of the level and Aquaman to the point where I would be near 100% confident that I could pull it off. But that goes against the very essence of what I'm trying to do here with my difficulty analysis. Numbers of outtakes and time taken become meaningless if I get practice in beforehand. Again, as before, I wouldn't rule it out, because if I could have just one lucky run on the mid-boss, I might be able to pull this off, but I'd be even more on edge than if I just beaten the junk eye. And a screw-up post-mid-boss might just be enough to make me throw my GameCube out the window. To be honest, thus far, there may be more stages I can't perfect run. If I ever do go back to try the ones I haven't managed, this one feels like it would be the most difficult. So, once again for the record, an unknown amount of time taken, a number of outtakes, an even angrier mood than I had for Grenade, and a 10 out of 10 rating for Aquaman stage. Let us never speak of it again. Still, 6 out of 8 Robot Master stages perfect run. Actually not too bad given that I was petrified about tackling Mega Man 8, and no worse a show than Mega Man 2, if you discount my Wily World success on air. So next time, again since there's no Game List League, I'll be taking on the Wily Fortress, without the fear of having to be perfect. I certainly won't be. But till then, cheerio.